Behind its gleaming white facade lies a secret history of movie magic, mistaken identities, and unexpected destruction. This iconic racing car wasn't what it appeared to be, cost a fortune to build, and lived multiple lives across Hollywood before meeting a dramatic end. From Tony Curtis's hidden handicap to pies that spoiled on set, the Leslie Special's journey is as wild as the film itself. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Great Races 1907 Leslie Special. Fact 1. Built on a Ford truck chassis. When you watch The Great Race and see Tony Curtis driving that pristine white 1907 Leslie Special across the screen, you're actually looking at a clever piece of Hollywood deception from 1964. The car that was supposed to represent cutting-edge automotive technology from the early 1900s was built on the bones of something far more modern and practical, a modified Ford truck frame. Warner Brothers Studios constructed the Leslie Special from the ground up specifically for the film, and they needed something that could withstand the rigors of an intense filming schedule while still looking authentic on camera. The solution was to mount a PVC body onto a modified Ford truck chassis, creating a vehicle that looked period accurate but could handle modern demands. Under that elegant brass-era exterior sat a Ford 260 V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, giving the car reliable power and easy drivability for the actors and stunt drivers who would be behind the wheel. This approach was common in Hollywood at the time, where practical considerations always trumped historical accuracy. The filmmakers needed cars that could drive hundreds of miles, operate in various weather conditions, and be repaired quickly if something went wrong during filming. A genuine 1907 automobile would have been impossibly fragile, difficult to maintain, and prone to breaking down at the worst possible moments. By building these custom movie cars with modern mechanicals hidden beneath vintage-styled bodies, Warner Brothers ensured that production could continue smoothly without constant mechanical delays. The PVC body material was lightweight, easy to repair if damaged, and could be molded into the graceful curves and details that made the Leslie Special look like an authentic brass-era racing machine, even though it was anything but authentic under the surface. Fact 2. 4 identical cars, different fates. Warner Brothers didn't build just one Leslie Special for the Great Race. They built 4 separate cars, and each one was constructed with its own specific purpose and distinct features to handle different filming requirements. According to the Peterson Automotive Museum, which has tracked the history of these famous movie cars, all 4 vehicles were built during production in 1964, but they weren't exactly identical twins despite looking the same on screen. The studio needed multiple cars because different scenes required different capabilities, and having backups was essential when you're shooting a major motion picture with an ambitious schedule. Some of the Leslie Specials were built for close-up shots where details mattered, while others were designed to handle the rough-and-tumble action sequences where durability was more important than perfect appearance. Each car had subtle variations in its construction and features, though moviegoers watching the film would never notice the differences. After filming wrapped, these 4 cars scattered to remarkably different destinations across the country and even into other movies. One of the Leslie Specials eventually found its way to the Tupelo Automobile Museum in Tupelo, Mississippi, where it's listed as a 1963 Leslie Special convertible and remains on display for visitors to see. Another ended up at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, while a third car, or possibly fourth, currently resides at Stahl's Auto Collection, where owner Ted Stahl actually owns 2 of the original 4 cars. The fate of the remaining Leslie Specials involved even stranger journeys, including appearances in other Warner Brothers films where they were repainted, repurposed, and in at least one case, completely destroyed on camera in a scene that would have made the original filmmakers cringe. Fact 3. 1 car for Tony's secret. Tony Curtis played the heroic Great Leslie with complete confidence and style throughout the film. But behind the scenes, there was a secret that required special accommodations from the production team. 3 of the 4 Leslie Specials were built with manual transmissions, but 1 car was specifically equipped with an automatic transmission because Curtis couldn't drive a stick shift, and the studio needed to make sure their leading man could actually operate the vehicle during filming. This detail has been confirmed by collectors who have owned the cars over the years, with one owner stating that Curtis drove the automatic transmission version, while the other 3 cars with manual transmissions were used by stunt drivers and other crew members who could handle the more complex driving mechanics. It's a surprisingly common issue in Hollywood, where actors are often cast in roles that require skills they don't actually possess, and the production team has to find creative workarounds to make everything look convincing on screen. Curtis was a major star at the time, known for his charm and good looks rather than his automotive expertise. And nobody expected him to be a professional driver on top of everything else. The decision to build one automatic transmission Leslie Special was a practical solution that kept filming on schedule and ensured that Curtis could focus on his performance rather than struggling with clutch work and gear changes between takes. The automatic transmission car would have been indistinguishable from the others when viewed on camera, maintaining the illusion that all 4 vehicles were identical while quietly accommodating the needs of the production and its star. This kind of subtle adaptation happens more often than audiences realize in movie making, where maintaining the fantasy on screen sometimes requires very practical compromises behind the scenes. Fact 4. Inspired by a real winner. The Leslie Special wasn't just a random creation from the imagination of Hollywood designers. It was carefully designed to resemble the Thomas Flyer, the actual automobile that won the real 1908 New York to Paris race, creating a fascinating blend of historical fact and cinematic fiction. Director Blake Edwards based his entire film very loosely on this genuine automotive competition, and he wanted the hero's car to pay tribute to the real winner, even though the movie took enormous liberties with the actual events. The original New York to Paris race began on February 12, 1908, with 6 entrants starting in New York City and racing westward across 3 continents toward their final destination in Paris, making it the first around-the-world automobile race in history. The Thomas Flyer, manufactured by the E.R. Thomas Motor Company, emerged victorious from this grueling competition, and its distinctive design features became the template for the Leslie Special more than 50 years later when Warner Brothers needed to create a period-appropriate racing car for their film. The designers studied photographs and specifications of the Thomas Flyer to capture its essential character, including the large rear wheels, the prominent grille, and the overall proportions that defined brass-era racing automobiles. While the Leslie Special was built with modern components underneath, its exterior styling closely mimicked the Thomas Flyer's appearance, giving moviegoers a sense of what these early racing machines looked like without requiring the production to locate and restore an actual antique vehicle. Edwards only borrowed the approximate race route and general time period from the real event for his effort to make what he called the funniest comedy ever. But this connection to automotive history gave the Leslie Special an authenticity that helped ground the film's outrageous comedy in something recognizable and real. Fact 5. Hit by a train in another movie. After the Great Race finished filming, Warner Brothers held on to the Leslie Specials and found ways to reuse them in other productions, and one of these cars met a spectacularly violent end in the 1969 Western comedy The Good Guys and the Bad Guys, starring Robert Mitchum and George Kennedy. The studio repainted one of the Leslie Specials in red and used it in a scene where an early motorist stalls on railroad tracks and the car gets cut in half by an oncoming train in a dramatic collision. Movie buffs who pay close attention during The Good Guys and the Bad Guys can spot the distinctive grille and overall design of the Leslie Special despite the new paint job, and when the train hits the vehicle, it becomes clear that this is a prop car rather than a real automobile. As the car flies apart on impact, you can see that it's constructed from painted wooden sections fastened together on a frame to look like a car, with no actual engine, drivetrain, interior seats, or glass windows inside, just hollow wooden pieces that splinter and scatter when struck by the locomotive. This was standard practice in Hollywood, where expensive props and vehicles were routinely recycled between productions to save money, and if a scene required destroying something, the studio would use a cheaper breakaway version or repurpose something they already owned. The Leslie Special that met its end on those railroad tracks had already served its primary purpose in the Great Race and was now expendable, making it a perfect candidate for a spectacular destruction scene. Warner Brothers got double duty out of this particular car, first as the hero's pristine white racing machine, and then as disposable set dressing for a train collision that provided a memorable moment in an entirely different film. Fact 6. Green Ghost in Cable Hogue. Another Leslie Special lived on in a completely different Warner Brothers production, appearing painted dark green in the 1970 Western film The Ballad of Cable Hogue. And sharp-eyed viewers who know what to look for can spot its true identity despite the color change. This particular car shows up during the last 30 minutes of the movie, carrying a lead character, and plays a pivotal role at the end of the film. But what makes it unmistakable is that the distinctive grille still bears the words Leslie Special, revealing its origins to anyone paying close attention. Even more telling is that the wheels and tires remained their original white color despite the body being repainted green, creating an unusual color combination that wouldn't have made much sense for a supposedly authentic period vehicle, but worked fine for a movie prop that needed to look different from its appearance in The Great Race. The Ballad of Cable Hogue was directed by Sam Peckinpah and starred Jason Robards. And while it's a very different kind of film from the slapstick comedy that gave birth to the Leslie Special, the car fit right into the early 20th century setting that both movies shared. Warner Brothers had a long-standing policy of reusing props, sets, and vehicles across multiple productions to maximize their investment, and the Leslie Specials were expensive custom builds that the studio wasn't going to let sit idle in a warehouse if they could find ways to put them back in front of cameras. The green Leslie Special in Cable Hogue represents a fascinating piece of movie history where an iconic prop takes on a new identity in a different story, and the fact that its original name remained visible on the grille serves as a kind of Easter egg for film buffs who recognize the connection between these two very different Warner Brothers pictures. Fact 7. Co-stars who couldn't stand each other. The chemistry between Tony Curtis and Natalie Wood looks perfect on screen in The Great Race. But behind the scenes, their relationship was anything but friendly, and the tension between them had been building for years before they ever stepped into the Leslie Special together. Curtis and Wood had previously worked on 2 films, Kings Go Forth in 1958 and Sex and the Single Girl in 1964, and during those productions, they developed what Curtis himself described as an acrimonious relationship that made the prospect of working together again extremely unappealing to Wood. Natalie Wood absolutely did not want to make The Great Race, and she was unhappy with both her career and her personal life at the time, having recently divorced from Robert Wagner in April of 1962. Studio executive Jack Warner was desperate to get Wood on board for the film, so he approached Curtis with an unusual request. Would Curtis be willing to give a percentage of his film royalties to Wood as an enticement to make her want to do the movie? Curtis flatly refused, later saying that he couldn't give her anything to make her want to do the movie. And his blunt assessment of the situation reveals just how strained their professional relationship had become. Instead of more money from Curtis, Warner eventually convinced Wood to sign on by promising that if she completed The Great Race, she could star in Gavin Lambert's drama Inside Daisy Clover, a role she desperately wanted. Wood agreed to the deal, thinking that filming would be brief on Blake Edwards' movie, though that assumption would prove wildly incorrect as the production dragged on and the budget spiraled out of control, forcing her to spend much more time working alongside Curtis than she had ever anticipated. Fact 8. The most expensive comedy ever made. The Great Race earned the distinction of being the most expensive comedy film ever made at the time of its release, with a final price tag of $12 million, which translates to roughly $92 million in today's money when adjusted for inflation. What makes this figure even more remarkable is that the budget started at just $6 million, meaning the production costs doubled over the course of filming as director Blake Edwards kept pushing for more elaborate sets, more complex stunts, and more ambitious sequences that drove the accountants at Warner Brothers absolutely crazy. Tony Curtis later described how the production just kept rumbling along under its own power, with costs spiraling out of control and Warner constantly on the edge of pulling the plug because the spending had become so exorbitant. Edwards would repeatedly visit Jack Warner's office, sometimes with Natalie Wood in tow, to ask for more money to complete various scenes and sequences, and Warner approved nearly all of these requests, despite his growing concerns about the ballooning budget. The elaborate custom cars, the massive pie fight sequence, the period costumes designed by legendary costume designer Edith Head, and the location shooting across multiple countries all contributed to the mounting expenses. At one point during production, Warner became so frustrated with the runaway costs that Blake Edwards was actually removed from the picture temporarily, though Curtis and Wood recognized Edwards' ability to get the best performances out of actors and successfully lobbied to bring him back. The film's extravagant spending didn't guarantee box office success. While The Great Race was popular with audiences, it didn't earn enough to fully recoup its massive investment, beginning a string of commercially unsuccessful but critically interesting films for Edwards that would later develop cult followings. Fact 9. 4,000 pies in 5 days. The pie fight scene in The Great Race has gone down in cinema history as one of the most elaborate food fights ever filmed, and the numbers behind it are staggering. The production used 4,000 real pies over 5 days of filming, spending $18,000 just on the pastries alone, while the entire sequence cost $200,000 to shoot, which equals roughly $1.5 million when adjusted for today's currency. The scene itself lasts only 4 minutes and 20 seconds on screen, making it one of the most expensive minutes of comedy ever filmed at that point in Hollywood history. Director Blake Edwards was inspired by the legendary pie fight that Laurel and Hardy staged in their short film, The Battle of the Century, and he wanted to create something even bigger and more spectacular for The Great Race. The pies were made with real fruit and custard fillings in colorful varieties, including raspberry, strawberry, blueberry, and lemon, giving each thrown pie a vibrant splash of color that looked beautiful in Technicolor but created serious practical problems as filming progressed. Edwards told his cast that a pie fight by itself isn't funny, so they needed to build tension by having Tony Curtis's character, dressed all in white, miraculously avoid getting hit, while everyone around him became increasingly covered in pie filling. To maintain continuity across the 5 days of shooting, the actors were photographed at the end of each day so that makeup artists could replicate the exact same colorful smears of pie crust and filling on their faces and costumes the following morning, ensuring that the mess looked consistent from one shot to the next as they assembled the sequence in the editing room. Fact 10. Pies that spoiled over the weekend. The decision to use real pies with genuine fruit and custard fillings created an unexpected and disgusting problem when filming of the pie fight scene was halted for a weekend break, giving the cast and crew 2 days off to recover from the messy and exhausting work. When everyone returned to the soundstage on Monday morning, they were greeted by an absolutely horrendous smell. All the pie residue that covered the walls, floor, furniture, and scenery had spoiled over the weekend, transforming the set into what must have felt like walking into a giant, rotten bakery. The colorful pie fillings that had looked so vibrant and beautiful under the studio lights on Friday had turned into a sour, fermenting mess by Monday, and the stench was so overwhelming that production couldn't possibly continue until something was done about it. The entire building required a thorough cleaning to remove all the spoiled pie remnants from every surface, and then the crew had to bring in large industrial fans to blow out the sour air and make the space breathable again before filming could resume. This unexpected delay added even more time and expense to a sequence that was already proving to be one of the most costly and elaborate comedy scenes ever attempted. Nobody on the production had apparently considered what would happen to thousands of pounds of real fruit filling and cream when left sitting in a closed soundstage for an entire weekend, and this oversight turned into a valuable lesson about the practical challenges of working with genuine food products in movie making. The cast had also been eating many of the pies during filming, enjoying the real ingredients. But after the weekend spoilage incident, the appeal of those colorful desserts probably diminished considerably for everyone involved in the production. Fact 11. Cast revenge on the director. After 5 exhausting days of being pelted with pies, covered in sticky filling, and repeating the same messy scenes over and over again, the cast of The Great Race decided that their director, Blake Edwards, deserved a taste of his own medicine, and they planned their revenge carefully. Throughout the filming of the pie fight sequence, cast members had been secretly stashing away several hundred pies in hidden locations around the set, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to spring their surprise attack on the man who had put them through this ordeal. When Edwards finally called cut for the last time, signaling that the pie fight sequence was complete and they could all move on to other scenes, the entire cast suddenly turned on him in a coordinated ambush. They bombarded Edwards with the hidden pies they had been saving, smothering him in the same colorful fruit fillings and cream that had been coating their faces and clothes for nearly a week. The director, who had been safely behind the camera throughout the entire shoot, while his actors endured the messy chaos in front of it, suddenly found himself on the receiving end of the slapstick comedy he had orchestrated. This spontaneous act of playful rebellion shows the camaraderie that can develop among cast members even during difficult shoots, and it gave the actors a moment of catharsis after days of uncomfortable, repetitive work. Edwards had pushed everyone hard to get the pie fight sequence exactly right, demanding take after take to build the perfect comedy timing and visual spectacle, so the cast felt entirely justified in making sure their director experienced at least a small fraction of what they had been going through for his vision of the greatest pie fight ever filmed. Fact 12. Pies heavy as cement. What looks like harmless slapstick comedy on screen turned out to be genuinely dangerous for the actors involved in the pie fight, and Jack Lemmon later revealed that he was actually knocked unconscious several times during filming because real pies thrown at high speed hit him with tremendous force. Lemmon described the experience by saying that a pie hitting you in the face feels like a ton of cement. And this wasn't just an exaggeration for effect. The weight of the pie tin combined with the dense filling and the velocity of the throw created impacts that were powerful enough to cause serious injury if they landed wrong. The production used real metal pie tins filled with actual fruit and custard, and when these projectiles were hurled across the set by actors and crew members trying to make the throws look dramatic and forceful for the camera, they became genuine hazards. Lemmon wasn't the only one who suffered during the sequence. Natalie Wood had a terrifying moment when a pie hit her directly in the open mouth while she was speaking or reacting to something else, and she briefly choked on the filling that went down her throat, unable to breathe until she could clear her airway. At first, the cast had fun filming the pie fight scene, treating it like an opportunity to engage in sanctioned chaos and playful food fighting. But as the days wore on and the physical toll became apparent, the novelty wore off completely. The process grew tiresome and dangerous, transforming what should have been one of the most enjoyable sequences to shoot into an ordeal that left actors bruised, exhausted, and covered in sticky residue that became increasingly unpleasant as filming dragged on through multiple takes and multiple days. Fact 13. Became a collectible toy. The Leslie Specials fame extended beyond the movie theater and into toy stores around the world. When Corgi Toys, the legendary British die-cast model car manufacturer, released a miniature version of the vehicle as part of their incredibly successful TV and movie tie-in series during the mid-1960s. Corgi Toys had built their reputation on creating detailed scale models of famous vehicles from popular entertainment, and they saw The Great Race as a perfect opportunity to add another iconic car to their growing collection of licensed movie and television vehicles. Corgi Toys was already dominating the die-cast toy market at this time with their innovative features like transparent plastic windows, spring suspension, and opening parts. That made their models more realistic and playable than competing brands. Their TV and movie tie-in series had become one of their best-selling product lines, featuring vehicles like the James Bond Aston Martin with working ejector seat, the Batmobile from the Batman television series, and cars from other popular shows that captured the imagination of children and collectors alike. The Leslie Special joined this prestigious lineup, giving kids the chance to recreate the cross-continental race in their own living rooms and backyards with a miniature version of Tony Curtis's pristine white racing car. These Corgi models were built to last and designed to withstand the rough play of children. making them durable toys that could survive being crashed, rolled, and subjected to all the imaginative scenarios that young fans could dream up. Today, mint-condition original Corgi toys from this era have become valuable collector's items, with some rare models fetching thousands of dollars at auction, and the Leslie Special remains a sought-after piece for both movie memorabilia collectors and vintage toy enthusiasts. Fact 14. Warner Brothers opened their doors. Warner Brothers had invested an enormous amount of money in The Great Race, and with $12 million on the line, the studio knew they needed an aggressive marketing campaign to ensure audiences would turn out for the film. So they did something unprecedented. They opened the Warner Brothers lot to the general public for the first time in the studio's history. This wasn't just a small promotional event, but rather an extensive free exhibit and studio tour that allowed ordinary moviegoers to see behind the curtain of one of Hollywood's most famous studios and get an up-close look at the elaborate props and vehicles that had been created for the film. The exhibit showcased the custom racing vehicles that appeared on screen, including both the Leslie Special and Professor Fate's villainous Hannibal Twin 8, along with 200 still photographs taken by Bob Willoughby throughout the filming process that documented the making of this massive production. Warner Brothers also created a Technicolor teaser trailer specifically for this exhibit called Behind the Scenes of the Great Race, giving visitors a preview of the movie while showing them how various sequences were filmed and brought to life. Because admission to the exhibit and tour was completely free of charge, Warner Brothers decided that all concession fees collected during the event would be donated to charitable causes, including the Variety Club of Southern California and the Motion Picture Relief Fund, turning the promotional campaign into a community-minded event that benefited the entertainment industry's support organizations. This bold marketing strategy demonstrated how nervous the studio was about recouping their massive investment, and opening their normally closed lot to public access represented a significant gamble that they hoped would generate enough excitement and word-of-mouth buzz to turn The Great Race into a box office success. Fact 15. Lives on in multiple museums. Despite the destruction of at least one Leslie Special in another movie and the scattered fates of the 4 original cars built for The Great Race, several of these iconic vehicles have survived and found permanent homes in automobile museums where they continue to delight visitors more than 60 years after the film's release. The Tupelo Automobile Museum in Tupelo, Mississippi houses one of the Leslie Specials, where it's listed in their collection as a 1963 Leslie Special convertible, and movie fans who make the pilgrimage to this museum can see the car up close and appreciate the craftsmanship that went into creating this piece of Hollywood history. Another Leslie Special resides at the prestigious Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, one of the world's premier automotive museums, where it shares space with countless other significant vehicles from both real racing history and cinema. The Peterson has been instrumental in documenting the history of these movie cars and tracking down information about how many were built and where they ended up after filming concluded. Stahl's Auto Collection, owned by Ted Stahl, has the most impressive holdings of any single collector. Stahl owns 2 of the original 4 Leslie Specials, and he's been a longtime supporter of the Great Race legacy, even bringing the cars out for special events and exhibitions. Stahl has participated in the modern Great Race Vintage Car Rally multiple times, and in 2014, one of his Leslie Specials traveled with the event, making appearances at each stop during the opening ceremonies and occasionally transporting dignitaries, allowing a new generation of automotive enthusiasts to see this famous movie car in action, and keeping the spirit of Blake Edwards' ambitious comedy alive for audiences who may have never seen the original film.